Welcome to Stitchery Stories, where textile artists share their life in fabric and thread, inspiration, techniques, disasters and delights. And I'm Susan Reeks, enthusiastic embroiderer and textile art dabbler who also loves podcasting. So take a break and enjoy our light-hearted chat, and please share with your friends so they can enjoy it too. Hello and welcome today to our lovely guest, Tina Francis. Hi Tina.
Hiya.
Now, normally I would read out a bio from my guest, but actually when I was speaking with Tina, she summed up herself beautifully in a couple of paragraphs. So I'm going to insert that into here. So it'll be Tina giving you her bio rather than me reading it.
Okay then. Well, so I run Tina Francis Tapestry and design different tapestry kits. But what I really believe in is that craft builds community. And so I really enjoy sharing my skills, setting up different community stitch groups and seeing how they flourish on their own. I've got the skill of the needle, but people themselves have got the skill to create a community that goes around that.
And then before I forget, I'm doing quite well today with my links, then you can find more about Tina on tinafrancis.co.uk. And she also has a blog about a particular series of work called The 7 Stages of Grief, and that's at tinafrancisgallery.blogspot.com. And she's also active on Instagram under Tina Francis Tapestry. So again, those links will be in Tina's episode on Stitchery Stories. So there we are. I've got all the admin done all in one go as a New Year's resolution. I'm going to give myself a gold star for that one.
Tick VG.
yeah, indeed. So Tina, so you're into, as you said, Tina Francis Tapestry. So you're into tapestry, and we'll have a bit of a chat about that word as well later on.
Yeah,
but before we get started too much today with your Stitchery story, would you like to share with us what you're working on and what has got you excited?
Okay, so at the moment I'm working on bringing Bargello back. I'm really interested in shape and form, and Bargello, to me, I've been doing a lot of tapestry stitching, but Bargello grows quite quickly, and a lot of my work is to do with resonance. So the comparison of the colours that Bargello and the movement they give you, I'm getting quite excited about that. I'm also working on a project, a community project, where I'll be stitching 1,000 bees with 1,000 people. And the resulting tapestry will be on display at the Hive, which is a Ruskin Mill Trust college in the Jewellery Quarter in Birmingham. And I'll be stitching with preschoolers, elders, community groups, refugee groups, and anybody who wants to come into the Hive to stitch a bee. And so the idea is that Birmingham being a city of sanctuary, we want to see where everybody has come from to stay around with us in Birmingham. So it's all about who you are, what you are, and being yourself and being unique.
Oh, that's lovely. Do people just kind of freestyle their own bee?
Oh, no. Yeah. So the idea is that you get the bare bones of the bee, if you like, which is drawn onto the canvas, and you stitch the bare bones of the bee, and then you can freestyle with your wings, with the background colour. I'm working a lot with different schools, and we're using their school colours as the background colour. And each tapestry bee is probably about, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 centimetres square or something. So it's, there's a little bit of room for people to freestyle. But, if it doesn't look like a bee, it doesn't matter. It's about the community and taking part.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. And obviously, as the idea of the bees come from the fact that it's been done at the Hive? Is that where that came from?
So Ruskin Mill Trust is quite an interesting story and trust, really. It's about people with special needs and giving those people skills so that they can take their place in the world. A lot of the skills, they've got a place down in Stourbridge, I think, which is glass, the Ruskin Mill glass space, and people learn how to etch glass and blow glass. The one in the Jewellery Quarter in Birmingham, which is the one that I'm associated with, they learn how to do felting. The students learn how to work with leather and also make fine jewellery. So it's about using a skill.
Right. No, I think that all seems to be a really good idea. And I love the way in which that you're bringing together, as you said there, it's like a place of sanctuary as well, bringing all sorts of different people together to put their mark on the tapestry and create themselves a base. So lovely. And has it actually started?
Yeah, it started about sort of just after half term, as I was going into different schools, and it will coincide with bees being put on the roof at the Hive Ruskin Mill Trust at Argent College. They've got their own allotment on top of the roof, and bees' hives are going to be put onto that allotment. But the good thing about the allotment on the roof is that all of the food that is grown on the allotment is used in the cafe down below in the hive.
Right. So that's an excellent place to be doing a community project with then.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing space for students. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I should imagine it is. Right, well, those are two very exciting projects then. Thank you for sharing that with us, Tina. Now, how did you get interested in embroidery and textile art, or, tapestry, needlepoint, whatever we're going to call it? And, how did you get onto the path of running this as a business?
This is almost like my second career.
Yeah.
I started out working in banking. I worked for NatWest, which at the time in the 80s was one of the big four.
Right. Yes.
I worked there in investment banking, and then I worked at Schroders, Barings, and also at Goldman Sachs. And it was around about the time when people were moving all of their paper-based systems onto computer-based systems. So I got quite interested in that. And from there, I started doing programming and systems testing, and also doing project management for different companies, and creating something really, I suppose, that was created from nothing. Somebody came to me with an idea, and then I was still making, because by the end of our conversation and by the end of the coding, the testing, and the testing it out on the systems, we'd actually made something that people could use, but not necessarily something people could hold.
Yes,
and so I decided that I wanted to, I got to around about the age of 40 odd. I decided that I still loved doing all of the work that I was doing, but I decided that I wanted to start making something that people could hold. I learnt printing. I'd always been interested in printing. So I went on a couple of night school courses to learn how to print. And I then went to Morley College to do their textile foundation course. It's a great college. What I learned from being there was that actually I did enjoy doing textiles. I didn't necessarily learn any techniques that were new to me.
Yeah.
But for my year-end show, I was very interested in embroidery transfers and how to blow those embroidery transfers up to large sizes and use them in screen printing.
Right.
It was around about that time that Royal Copenhagen in Denmark, they were also looking at their traditional blue patterns, and they were blowing them up and putting them large onto plates and things like that, and just learning about how an image and a design can be blown up to a large size and still have the resonance of memory.
Yeah.
So my year-end show was about that, and I bid on a box of embroidery transfers, and it was a little dairy milk box, like an old-fashioned dairy milk box of chocolate. I opened it up, and inside there was a whole woman's life in stitch patterns and knitting patterns.
Wonderful.
So it was from her going away outfit for her honeymoon, and then it was little baby booties, matinee jackets, patterns for school uniforms, embellishments. When we all in the 70s, maybe when we all had to like stitch a little bit at the bottom of a curtain, to make it something a bit different. There was all of those type of patterns, and then it came back round into like the 1980s, and again it had gone back to baby booties and matinee jackets. For her own grandchildren. And I thought, this woman has, created art all of her life, and the art that she has created is love, really, because she has worked so hard, to create a beautiful environment for her own children and then for her grandchildren. Yeah. So I looked at what was called home crafts, and I found a whole army of women artists who didn't see themselves as that, because it's just something I do. The word "just" we use it a lot. Women.
It's a nightmare.
I just made that. I just hemmed that. I just made that beautiful piece of embroidery. So they didn't see themselves as that, and so I decided that I wanted to try and honour that. I liked the idea of tapestry needlepoint. We'll get onto whatever we're talking about. I use a needle, it goes through the canvas, but I call it tapestry. I looked at that because there was an element of printing in that, but then I felt that I could also bring texture into the prints. I got some secondhand unfinished tapestries and I finished those off. So taught myself how to stitch by looking at how other people had stitched. And then began having a look at how I could use that as a business. I spoke to somebody called Wendy from One Off Tapestry. And she helped me and said, "Oh, if you want to create a tapestry kit, these are the people you go to. This is the wool. This is the wool that you need. Why don't you have a go?" And she really encouraged me. So from a woman, nobody knows the people who even sold the dairy milk box. They just got it from a house clearance. They didn't know that woman. The women that had half finished tapestries. And then also with Wendy. So the work of two unknown women and a very famous woman in the tapestry industry. I then almost like stitching on their shoulders. So I set out my own design and off I went.
Right. Well, do you know though, what a fascinating story, and particularly for me because there's so many parallels to me. It's quite, seriously, Tina, it's quite scary. As I've possibly said before, I started off as a mainframe computer programmer for Nissan in the early 80s. I've worked in technology, worked for banking, did a lot of work with Morgan Stanley, training their graduates and coding and all the rest of it. So, it's and as I was mentioning, just as we were chatting beforehand, it's like, for a long time, I kind of almost pretended I didn't do embroidery because it was I was in an office full of men and they'll have thought I was, insane, really. And you're trying to kind of like not be seen as the token woman in the office. So, God's sake, do not say that you do embroidery. That's going to kill your career off to start off with. But it's the creativity. And then there's the embroidery transfers. I was given a box, same old thing, an old chocolate box full of transfers from the 1930s Good Needlework Woman magazine. From the old lady next door, and it's the same thing, all these tray cloths and all these every week is let's embroider these towels and tray cloths. But I love those. I was fascinated. I used to kind of copy them and colour them in when I was little, and I actually I dug one out not so long back as with one of the crinoline lady ones. I thought I'm going to do one of these. So it's part of a wider piece I'm doing, but I had to get that in. So wow, that just really brings it together. But the thing that I found fascinating as well was this story of this woman's life in all of her patterns. It would make a nice book or something, wouldn't it? Just somebody's life in patterns. I thought that was brilliant. I can see why you were quite excited and how you got into your second career with that. That's just really fascinating.
And also, talking about the crinoline lady, I actually dressed as a crinoline lady from a year-end show at Morley College. So we are twins.
Oh, that's just brilliant. Right. And I just, one of the reasons I love doing this is that you don't know what stories are going to come creeping out until you actually start chatting. It's just brilliant. I'm so nosy.
I love it. I love a bit of voyeur.
Now then, so obviously, I love the way that you said you're kind of stitching on the shoulders of giants. I think that's brilliant. It's brilliant, is that? And so really, all of those people have been quite an inspiration to you. And, it was really nice that you found somebody to help you with the practical aspects of getting some of these ideas into a commercial form. So that's always very inspiring, isn't it, to have a mentor or somebody to help us. So Now, so is there any other kind of particular inspirations that keep you fired up, Tina?
Yeah, I think I love Hannah Riggin. She's a Norwegian weaver,
right?
And she used weaving to protest because Norway was invaded in the Second World War.
Yes,
and she used her artwork to protest against that invasion, and she also used her artwork to reflect things that were happening around the world. And because something is seen as a quiet craft and traditional and isn't that lovely, she was one of the first people really to actually use her craft to protest. So for always. It will always be her for me. And there's some fantastic work that she's done, and it's as relevant now as it was when she did it in, sort of like 20s, 30s, 40s.
Oh, right. Yeah. Now, I haven't heard of her. So can we look her up? Can we go and see some pictures of what she's done?
Yeah, you can look her up. There was an exhibition of her work last year, actually, in the UK. But you can actually, the best place to really go is to go to Norway and go see her work in Tromsø or Trondheim.
Yeah, brilliant. And then with those inspirations, so you mentioned about her and her protest work, and that's a real thing now, isn't it, as well? Using embroidery to kind of make protest about all sorts of different things. So, it's nice how things go around in circles as well, almost. There's sometimes there isn't anything new under the sun, is there? But things get more attention. People get more attention these days, don't we? Because we've got the facilities to gain attention.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Now, you mentioned there about Bargello, and one of the first questions I asked was, how do we pronounce it? And I don't think we really came to much of a conclusion, did we?
No, I think, it's like Bargello, let's call the whole thing off. But I think, the words, like we touched earlier on about what tapestry is, I call what I do tapestry because that's how I found it. I looked up in the library and it was called Tapestry. Some people will call it Tapestry Needlepoint. Some people will shout at you and say tapestry is woven. But it's words, and I think sometimes we get too het up on the correct words for things when it's more important to actually give that craft a go and really enjoy the process of the craft like Bargello or Bargello or tapestry can bring you.
Yeah, now see, that was another thing I used to find, when I was a teenager, jumble sales were a marvellous place, weren't they, in them days? And you used to find all sorts of half abandoned, and they always said tapestry kits on them, and it's basically
they do.
tent stitch, isn't it? I think tent is the correct is the correct thing. And you'd pick those up and think, well, why has somebody stopped with this? All they've done is half a tree or a bush or 3 flowers and a rabbit. And I've got several of these things, around the house. Still now that I did when I was a teenager, because crikey were they expensive to buy, and you could get them for 50p at the jumble sale. It was an absolute bargain. So I've always I did lots of those when I was a youngster. But it's always nice to be able to bring things back. And when you talked before about the resonance of Bargello and the different colours that you bring in, the thing that it brings to mind is sound waves. The sound waves,
right.
Tapestry sound, I've said it again, Tapestry sound waves. I thought, it is. It's for me, I like audio. It's sound waves. So,
it is. And one of my kits is actually called Stepping Out, because as you look at it, you can imagine somebody moving, movement and everything. And sometimes with tapestry needlepoint, with the tent stitch, it can become quite static. And so using a longer stitch, like in Bargello, you're bringing movement to it. Whereas I suppose with my tapestry needlepoint, I bring movement from the resonance of different colours, shouting to each other as opposed to moving.
Yeah. No, that's great. So I think we've worked out that this is one of your favourite techniques then.
I love it.
A one-woman campaign to bring it back.
Yes. and I think just echoing back to when you were talking about half-finished tapestries that were in second-hand shops and being able to buy them for a song wherever, I think that does take us back to what I was talking about earlier about, it's just women that have made this. So you can look at something that's taken somebody 6 months or a year and there's no value attached to it at all. We're selling it for £5. I think that if that had been done by a man, say, or whatever, people would be looking at it a little bit differently. But there is still work to be done there, I think, about people understanding, because it's somebody's pattern, the person who stitched that pattern, the pattern will always be mine, but the artist belongs to the person that stitched it. Yes,
exactly. And you are very right when you kind of highlighted the fact that we are the world's worst people at saying just. I just did this. I just did that. It's like, hang on, let's just stop. Let's just stop saying just, shall we? Because there's nothing just about it.
I know. It's hard though.
Yeah, it is so hard. Right, okay, so that's really nice. And in terms of the Bargello, did I notice somewhere that you have a book on the go?
Yeah, I'm going to be writing a book, and then because the books at the moment that are out there are fantastic. It's not a new stitch, it's not a new it's not a new process, the books that are out there are from the 60s, 70s, which there's nothing wrong with that. But
No.
print has moved on so
Yes.
far that we can
Yes.
get a really good idea about what colours are and what the colours will look like when we finished it. So I'm writing a book at the moment to bring Bargello back, as I've been saying before,
Yeah.
but also to show that you can use any wool that you've got knocking about, because I'm interested in people using their stash. And so the pattern is the thing that guides you, the movement of the pattern. So you can use all your different coloured wools and you're still going to have a great result, because the pattern will hold the colours together.
Yeah, now that was something else that I've it's quite a prominent thing for you as well, isn't it? This idea of using up your stash and using whatever bits and pieces of wool that you have lying around. And I thought it was really interesting how you just mentioned there, and you also say on your website as well, about the fact that yes, all your random bits of weird coloured wools will work together because of the pattern will bring them together. And I thought that was such a nice way to instill some confidence in somebody.
Definitely. Definitely. I think I do a lot of workshops with a pattern that's called weave, and we use, sometimes I don't allow people to use the colours that they like. Just use the colours that you've got knocking around, because you will create something really beautiful from that. And as a tapestry kit maker and designer, I have to put 30% more wool than's needed into the kits anyway. That's like almost like a standard that I'm putting more wool in. So I'm already adding to the wool mountain by wanting people to stitch my kit. And then all of a sudden I'm also saying, use your stash. So I'm almost trying to full circle it.
Well, that's it. Use your stash up and then, have some more.
Is it back to front enabling or something?
Oh dear. So Tina, with all of that background then, what would you say has been the high point of your textile art and embroidery journey and tapestry and Bargello journey so far, would you say?
I think I've got a lot of enjoyment from creating community groups and working with communities.
Yeah, that comes across very strongly.
Yeah. And so last year I was working with 150 people, or over 150 people actually, on a tapestry that's now, people can go and view it in Stitchery Baths, and it ended up being 6 foot by 4 foot.
Wow.
This tapestry. And the tapestry was a copy of a painting that had been done at Stitchery Bath before it closed down. The assistant manager there got sick and tired of seeing, scaffolding all around. So he painted a beautiful tropical island scene, and then through Heritage Lottery funding, we then stitched a tapestry that resonated with his drawing at the time. So it was a fantastic thing to do, and working with so many different people on it, we created something really unique. Each person stitched one piece, and so each piece is a tapestry in its own right. And the thing that really sort of spurred me on after that was that group still meets now. The core group of people still meet now, not the 150 odd, but the people that were the core group. They've got their own stitch group now.
Wonderful.
And so that's a really great legacy. As far as my artwork, because my work is exhibited in different galleries, it would be the reaction to my work 7 Stages of Grief, which is about how I, as a maker, I'm used to fixing things, or I'm used to people coming to me and asking me for something, and for me to be able to make it. So I sort of fix what's broken and make what is required. And with grief, you can't actually do that. Those skills that my life is based on sort of become a little bit redundant, because you can't make it better, you can't paper it over. And so I stitched because my work is all about process from the computing stage of my career until now. I looked at something called 7 Stages of Grief, and each stage has got a name, and I stitched the 7 stages of grief. And it started off that at one end it was sort of like the disbelief, the shock, the horror. I had that as a very dark piece of work with 2 green lines down the middle of it. And as you moved more to the light, more colours were added in, but the dark darkness and the green lines were always part of the following on tapestry.
Right, so that was the kind of thread running through it, as it were.
Yeah, that was a thread. So I don't really see, grief as a straight line. I think you can mix up all those different parts of grief. But when I first exhibited it, a woman came in and she looked at the work and she said, "I can't wait to be back to there," and pointed to the first picture. And that first picture was her seeing calmness. And that's how her life, that's what she saw. Her life was calm and ordered. And she saw the end result that I saw as my light with colours and loads of things going on as the absolute chaos.
Right. How interesting.
So that was a highlight to me, because it shows that however you can create pieces of work and they're interpreted differently by people.
Yes.
And it was a great reaction to know that it was still, it worked either way, but that I'd learned something from it, even myself, during the exhibition stage.
Yes, and then that's been exhibited around various places, hasn't it, as well?
Yeah, it's been exhibited in various places, galleries and places in the UK, but it's also been exhibited in ICHF, like their fashion embroidery and stitch shows around the country. And it's been exhibited, it's worked quite well because it's been exhibited quietly on a stand. No one's been on the stand, and nobody's been on the stand, and they've seen the tapestry, and then they've come to find me at the show wherever I've been, and had a look at it in that way, rather than it being go to a gallery, look at grief. It's been more about this thing that is part of us all, and it's all around us.
And when we were talking before as well, has that been a catalyst to spend time or help other people suffering with grief?
Yeah, I've worked with different bereavement groups. I can't really help or fix or mend, as we've discussed.
Yes.
All I can do, it's very interesting when you're doing handwork and you are sitting and concentrating on the handwork. You don't have to make eye contact. And there's something about not making eye contact that makes people speak or feel that they can speak.
Can speak, yes.
And so in groups like that, it's been really great. I work with different groups, but I'm not the counsellor in that group. I'm the person bringing the stitching skill.
Yes.
And it's the counsellors, obviously, that, lead the conversation.
Yes.
But it's been quite interesting for me to see that they're not looking at each other in the stitching, giving that verb, almost permission to say what you want without having to.
Yeah, it's almost like this will come out wrong, but it's like a distraction activity, isn't it? Really, your hands are doing something else.
Well, sometimes that's it. You're 10 minutes. You're away for 10 minutes. When you look up, you're still going to be back in the world. That you've got to address or you've got to get on with. But for those 10 minutes, you can't. When you're stitching, you can only concentrate on stitching if you want a good result. Nothing else can really go in your mind.
Yes, it's very therapeutic in that respect, isn't it?
Yeah. You can't. I think somebody said you can't stitch angry because you're stitching away. I think that was with fine cell work. They work a lot in prisons.
Yes,
and one of the prisoners said, if you stitch angry, it doesn't make a good result.
No, that's a very powerful statement, isn't it? And it's
it is.
Very, very true. Wow. Well, that's all absolutely fascinating. And what lovely high points as well. With people, again, back down to the central theme, but in totally opposite dimensions as well, really.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing those, Tina. You've kind of alluded to this already, but I know you've got quite a few thoughts on this. So, I'm always very interested in how artists organise your creative time, but also recognising the fact that if this is a business, then you have your creative time, but you've also got your business time as well. Otherwise, you don't have a business. So, have you kind of got any thoughts for us around that particular aspect of your work?
Yeah, I think, to be able to call myself a tapestry artist, there are many other things that I have to do to be part of that. And I think nowadays they call it a portfolio career. But as makers and creatives, we've always had portfolio careers. So I call myself a tapestry artist. That's on my business card. But I also work with community groups. Yeah. I run my own workshops. I run workshops around the country. I also run art projects with preschool where I do Arts Award. I run Jewelry Quarter Open Studios, which takes place twice a year, encouraging people to open up their studio. So I'm doing a lot of different things to call myself a tapestry artist. And all of those things use a needle. All of those things use a skill, the skill of the needle. But, you know, people don't realise, they think that, you know, you're posting things on Instagram and you are doing that all the time. You're stitching all the time. Isn't that brilliant? And I think the support network that we need, they're out there, but sometimes it's quite a lonely road, being, you know, working on tapestries or thinking that everybody else is getting on but you're not, or it's quite lonely. And so we need to look for different community groups or people that can encourage us. And I've found quite a lot of help from something. It's on Friday, actually. It's called Micro Business Matters Day.
Oh, right.
And it's all about most of us are running micro businesses.
Well, we are, yes. That's right.
We're running many. I'm running many, maybe 3 or 4. You know, all of them enable me to call myself an artist. But it's quite a good day, and it's quite a down to earth day where people are talking about what they see as the problems that they might be facing, how they communicate with different networking groups. And I think I'm going to be on it, talking about making and creating. So talking about what we're doing now, really, about how do you seek out those networks that can support you. And so it's a really good day for people to tune into that.
Brilliant.
And yeah, it's a really good day out, really, but from your own desk.
Yeah, we all quite like those, don't we? Day outs.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, pajama days.
Yeah. Now, I was just going to date this by saying that this is going out on the 9th of January, and so we're talking about the 11th of January.
The 11th,
is the Friday. Yeah, Micro Business Matters Day. Is there a website or something for that?
Yeah, there's a website.
Fantastic. I don't make a living out of my very small output of creativity, but I do make my living selling my services online. So, you know, I have the same challenges as artists. I just express my services in a different way, really. And I guess really then there's all of those different threads of income sources as well. Now, did I also notice that you make up some of your designs and use them in different ways, like on homewares and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I do. I think we touched on it a little bit before about how printing has moved on with the Bargello book.
That's right, yeah.
And so because tapestry, it takes a long time. And so because I'm using a lot of secondhand wool in my gallery artwork, I can only produce something once.
Yes.
And so I get that work imaged and get it printed onto different products. But initially it's created, and it creates limited edition prints that are done. It's like at an art printers, and I get the fronts and the backs imaged, and the backs always sell more than the fronts as limited edition prints.
So I've noticed a few of that. I thought, right, those are the backs. Okay, so that's a very interesting point, that the backs are equally, if not more popular than wow, who'd have thought that?
I know, and I think it's because they look more painterly.
Possibly,
because a lot of people that would buy a limited edition print don't necessarily even think about the original work. That's not what's important to them. It's the print. A lot of my prints are in banks, so it's going back to banks again.
Yeah, so it's back to kind of a colour theme, isn't it? Yeah.
They're sort of nondescript, non-offensive, if you like, and it's but the backs are the things that people really love. But I also then get my work printed onto trays and books, like notebooks, and on cushion covers and things like that, because you can translate a design now into all different mediums. And I think that there's different people may not necessarily want a tapestry stitched cushion, but they quite like the idea of having that pattern as a print on a cushion that they can wash.
Well, again, and that's back to kind of modern practicalities as well, isn't it? And it's also very much extending your product range, which is what all the business advice kind of goes on and on about as well.
Yeah, that's it. Extend, not dilute.
Yes. Brilliant. There's some really interesting bits and pieces that you've shared in there with us, Tina, today.
Yeah.
And so really I was just looking towards any other future plans and projects that you'd like to share with us today that we maybe haven't touched on? Obviously, you've got your bees project on the go.
Yeah, I have, and I've got. We talked about. I'm going to be writing a Bargello book, but also I'm really interested in people using what they've already got, and so later on in the year at Alexandra Palace at the Knitting and Stitching Show, I'll be encouraging people to bring in, a piece of work that maybe they don't want to, they haven't finished or they can't finish, and giving them ideas about how to finish that work. Because a lot of the time there's a way that you can finish off the work and it will look just as great, but you're not necessarily doing, a half cross stitch. You're doing a different type of stitch, a different type of Canvaswork stitch. So that's what I'll be encouraging later on in the year, for people to finish what they've got in a really beautiful way and get it on their wall.
So, and that's such an interesting idea as well. I haven't really heard anybody talking about that either, because, and especially at the knitting and stitching shows, we're all there. Everyone's like mad crazy buying this, that and the other. And I can only imagine the amount of stuff that gets brought home, all excited. And until the next year when you go and buy some more.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, everything has to be a considered purchase now. I mean, we don't know what, we're moving into turbulent times, aren't we, really? And so we need to, concentrate on what we have. And I suppose I've been talking quite a lot of artists and makers, really, about the concept of enough. And as a maker, I've only got a set amount of days that I can make. And there's only a set amount of things that I can make in a year. And that has to be my concept of enough. I can't, people want something handmade. If they want to, commission me, they want me to have stitched it. They don't want me to have said, oh, yeah, I'll get somebody else to stitch that. Yeah. So it's about thinking about enough and what you need in your life for it enough, to carry it on and for you to be able to survive. Obviously, everyone's got to pay bills, but there has to be some time when you're looking at what enough is. Yes. But I still need people to buy my kits.
Yeah, but that's all part of the enough thing, because it's back to that purposeful business design. And that was something that I was speaking with Helen with quite a bit, was that purposeful business design. And again, it's the same issues for me as a virtual service provider as it is for somebody creating a piece of work with fabric and thread. Is we have only a limited amount of time, and therefore we have income goals that we need to achieve. Therefore, how does that translate into where are the different sources of income coming from? Some of which are going to be that individual work that somebody wants to pay you to create for them, and others is to create goods and services, passive income almost, isn't it?
So, it is. So things are ticking over, certain things will tick over. If you've sold a design, that will tick over for a while, and that you've got that certain amount of money coming in. It's the same as what we were talking about earlier, about if you do want to start your business this year and you listen to Micro Business Matters Day on Friday, you've got to realise, keep your job, keep your existing job, because that is something that you cannot deny regular money coming in. It empowers you really to be able to do whatever else you want to do.
It does. And that applies to whether you're trying to start a creative business or a virtual business like mine. I mean, I'm involved with a company called Freelance University. I'm one of their mentors for them. And it's the same thing, quite often people are dead excited, oh, I'm going to pack my job in. Well, until you've kind of got yourself established, put that extra hours and work in and try and keep both going, because it takes the pressure off yourself. And when your pressure's off, you can be creative and give of your best. Excellent advice, Tina, regardless of what the medium of the money-making activity is. Well, on that note, Tina, that's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you. We really covered some very, very interesting things.
Thank you.
Remember, everybody, to go and track down Tina on her website and Instagram. All the things you've shared with us, I'm sure everybody will find them equally as fascinating as I had, Tina.
Oh, thank you.
Sharing your Stitchery story with us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
If you liked this episode and want to hear more, then please join the Stitchery Stories fan club so you can get an email when a new episode is released. It's a quick and easy way of listening and of keeping up with any news and offers from our lovely guests. Please visit stitcherystories.com to join the fan club. Of course, if you have iTunes, then subscribe there to automatically get new episodes. And why not leave us a review and rating whilst you are there? So that is the end of our Stitchery story for today. So keep stitching, keep smiling, and keep creating your very own Stitchery stories.